Hey everybody, it's me again, Velton Shaw, and I'm back. Yesterday we had a little technical difficulty towards the end of our presentation, so we're going to go back and start where we left off yesterday. And I think really the point I was making when we got disconnected was talking about how when you develop and write a strategic plan, a lot of times you have great intentions and things are going in a certain direction, the market's moving a certain way, you got a good feeling for what's going on around you, you've got a good basis of information that has been presented to you and trends and transitions and so forth. And then something happens, the unexpected, that variable that you didn't count on, that catastrophe, that unexpected oomph. Willie Jolly says a setback is a setup for a comeback. And what I was talking about yesterday, what happened to us in Miami was just that. It was a setback. We were on Miami Beach, as I mentioned, and we were in the process of developing a strategic plan for a hotel that was in a pre-opening stage. And then something happened. 9/11. Two airplanes flew into the World Trade Center in New York City, and the country was at war. Markets crashed. People lost all hope and ideas. Travel stopped. There's a few things when difficult times happen, when catastrophes happen, that corporations do. The first thing they do is they usually cut travel and entertainment. The second thing that they cut, and for many of you this is a major issue, is training. But in the travel and entertainment side, because I was in the hospitality industry in the hotels, the strategic plan that we were writing had to be rewritten. That setback, if we were going to turn it into a comeback, had to be redeveloped, redesigned, rethought. What do? How do you process that when it happens to you? How do you process that and recover? Because recovery is really where the prize is. If you can't recover, you stay stagnant. If you stay stagnant, then you're soon going to be out of business. Think about the last time that you had a problem or an issue in your business. How quickly you had to react and recover to either save what was going on or to really save your business in its entirety. So we had that issue happen. So I want you to make sure that as we go through this process and we write this plan, we understand this if we don't understand anything else. It is a living, breathing, live document, not to be written and placed on the shelf as a trophy or something to look up to, or something when somebody says, do you have a strategic plan? Oh yeah, there it is right there. No. This is a viable part of your business. This is the heart, the blood that flows through your business that makes things move, the direction, the engine, the vision. So make sure that you understand that if something happens, if there's a blip on the radar screen, if there's an interruption, if there's a cycle change, that you have a plan. But your plan has to be flexible enough for you to make the adjustments to offset negativity. But more importantly, and here's the secret that a lot of people miss, make sure that it doesn't just get changed when negative things happen. Make sure that you change it when something positive happens. If the market starts an swing, if there's a change in the industry that you're in, that there's new innovation, there's new creativity, there's new money that's flowing in, make sure that you can make the adjustment in your plan so that your direction allows you to take advantage of all the positive things that are going on in the marketplace. It's easy to pick one or two and make it a knee-jerk reaction, but if you structure yourself so that you're always thinking, now this is happening. If this happens, I go this direction. If that happens, I go that direction. You're always able to not only do it yourself, but your team is in sync because everybody's a part of the structure and the strategy that's developed to make this plan a living, breathing, moving document. We'll talk about the involvement of everybody else as we get into the strategies and tactics of the plan and the actual information that puts the plan together. But I'm going to regress now. I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm going to talk about the mission statement. I'm going to talk about the vision. I'm going to talk about when you start the plan, how you begin the development process, what it is that you're looking to do, the why. You know, everybody asks the question individually, what is your why? Why are you creating this business? Why are you starting down this road? What is pushing you to create this or write this book? Start this new business, start this process, develop this invention. What is it? Why do you want to do this? What's driving you? What's that force? That's your vision. What is the why inside of you? And here's something that's really important that I hope that you also capture from that. Everybody on your staff, everybody on your team, everybody in your network has their own why. Have you ever stopped to ask them why? What's their why? And we'll talk about that in another format, but you've got the best players on your team. You've selected superstars. You've selected all-stars to help you develop this strategic plan for your business. Have you ever stopped to ask them why? Why they do what they do? Why they're helping you? Why they've come today? Why they show up every day? Once you understand their why, you can understand even better how they can help you formulate your achievement of your why. So let me ask you a couple of questions, and we're going to talk a little bit about them as we go through the process here. So the question is, why are you developing or creating this business? What's your strategy? What about this particular issue is appealing to you or is a force that's driving you forward so that you want to solve somebody's issue or solve somebody's problem? Because in any business, people do business with people who solve their problems. So the question you have to ask yourself as you're developing your mission statement, as you're developing your vision, is what problem do I solve? What problem does my invention solve? If it's an invention, people are going to buy it because it solves a problem. Little things. Think about it this way. Why do people purchase Colgate toothpaste, Crest toothpaste, whatever toothpaste you purchase? It solves a problem. It cleans my teeth. It changes how my breath smells, but it solves a problem for me. Why do people buy cars? It solves a transportation problem for them. If they don't have a car, they have to either ride a bike or walk. Now, depending on their socioeconomic status, that car changes, but it's not a need, it's more of a want. But why are cars created? Cars are created to provide transportation. Why am I sitting here in this ballroom? Why was this ballroom constructed? It was constructed to solve a problem. The problem was a place for people to meet and get information. So the ballroom and the hotel were developed and designed, created an industry that I worked in for many years because it solved a problem for people. It allowed people to do things that otherwise they would not be able to do. Think back in the early days when people were sitting around a campfire or sitting on a rock having a conversation, which they called a meeting later. But now we've got comfy chairs, we've got lights, we've got stages, we've got screens, we've got all of these things that were developed business-wise to solve somebody's issue or somebody's problem. So what is this problem or the issue that your business solves? How do you solve it, and why do people will people want to do business with you? The other thing is, and I'll stay in the hotel business right now for a few minutes because I know a lot about that. Sometimes people say I know more about that than anything else. But that's another story, and we'll let them have their own opinion. But the question is, there are a lot of different hotel companies out there. And we have them tiered. They call them a 4-star, a 5-star, a 4-star, a 3-star, a 2-star, a 1-star hotel. I was very fortunate in my career. I only worked in 4- and 5-star hotels. I worked for some of the larger hotel chains. But the issue is this, okay? And this is what drove them to the star levels. And you need to ask yourself the same thing in your business. What's your differentiating factor? What makes you different than the person next door, the lady next door, the guy next door, the entrepreneur down the street who has a similar product? What's your differentiating factor? What makes you the right choice? What makes you bigger, better, or badder than the person that you're competing with, or the person who's in your marketplace? You know, some people say, and Roy Kroc, if you don't know who Roy Kroc was the creator of McDonald's. And he had a philosophy, and his philosophy was this. When people came to him and asked him, you know, what share of the market does McDonald's own? And he said, share. I don't share my market with anybody. I own the market. So the question is, how do you own the market? The way Roy Kroc owned the market, it was his differentiating factor. His differentiating factor told him that everything in my business is guaranteed to be identical no matter where you are. The product that I put out is the best possible product and is exactly the same whether you're in New York City or you're in Tokyo. The hamburger, the cheeseburger, the filet of fish, the french fries would be identical. And nobody else can make that claim. That was his differentiating factor. Question is, what's your differentiating factor? What makes you different? What sets you apart? When you talk about hotels, you talk about, you know, 4-star. What makes a 4-star or a 5-star hotel different than a 2-star hotel? You've stayed in hotels, you know the difference. What is the differentiating factor that makes it possible for them to be placed in these categories and retain their presence? I don't talk about a lot of hotel companies, but I'll talk about one in particular because they are known around the world as one of the premier companies in the world. They are the only hotel company to ever win a very prestigious award, and if you haven't heard of it, it's called the Malcolm Baldrige Award. And the Malcolm Baldrige Award is given out to major corporations who are the epitome of the elite in customer experience, which to me trumps customer service. You'll very rarely hear me talk about customer service. You'll always hear me talk about customer experience. And the reason that I do that is anybody can serve someone for a minute, for a half hour, for an hour, even for a day. But if you want to create something that will make someone want to do business with you over and over again and rely on you to provide a certain level of service no matter what, and to ultimately put you in a category by yourself, that category I call the trusted advisor category, then you need to provide not customer service, but you need to provide customer experience. And experience lasts a lifetime. Anybody can serve for a minute, an hour, or a day. But an experience is a feeling that gets inside of a person and stays with them. And when your company is mentioned, whether it's a brick and mortar business, whether it's a technology business, whether it's you as a speaker, trainer, or coach, they get a warm feeling. Why? Because you provided an experience to them that they couldn't get somewhere else. So as you're creating your vision and you're creating your company, if it's a startup, if it's a company that's already in business, when you're creating that strategy and that plan, how are you going to ensure that you're providing that level of experience that sets you apart from everybody else who's providing that experience in the marketplace? Think about that. That's not something that you can answer just like that, because there are a lot of moving parts and moving pieces to creating the right experience. That's why I said it's different than customer service. It's a customer experience. One of the greatest companies right now that I know of, and one of my good friends who I spoke to earlier today, Simon T. Bailey, worked for them, is Disney. Disney provides an experience of a lifetime. Now, I live in Florida. In Orlando, you've got Disney World and you've got Universal Studios. Both of them provide an incredible customer experience, and they are in a class by themselves, and they compete against each other every day. If Universal Studios game wasn't at the top of level, it couldn't survive in a marketplace down the street from Disney. But because they provide the experience of a lifetime consistently, they're able to coexist in the same marketplace. Now, one outdoes the other, and we won't say which one does. You make it, depends, it's preference, whichever you prefer. But it tells you how an experience in a marketplace ensures longevity of a business, because both of them have been around for a long, long time. Okay? Next question, when you're developing your initial mission or your vision, how are you going to fund it? Where's your funding source? What do you need to fund it? What are the resources that you need to fund it? Because it's not going to fall out of the air. And how is it going to grow as your funding grows? You got to think about that. Even though you may not be putting together your budgets yet, but how are you going to fund your business? Is it something that's going to allow you to currently jump all in because you've got enough financial resources to fund? If it's a nonprofit, do you have a foundation that's going to fund your business? Have you created a foundation? If it's a for-profit, do you have the ability to borrow the money that you need? Do you have the money saved that you need? Where's your funding coming from? Let me just step back for a second, because I've spoken to a lot of religious types of organizations. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You know, when I was in corporate America, I had a lot of employees and a lot of people from religious groups that used to come to me for funding. And sometimes it wasn't a church, but it was a religious-based organization. One of the questions that I asked them is, do you have a foundation? They said, what do you mean? I said, if you have a foundation, corporations are more apt to give money to foundations than they are to religious organizations. And the reason for that is denominational differences. You know, if I give to one religious organization, then I'm basically in a situation where I have to consider all religious denominations. Foundations are different. You know, one of the biggest foundations that was giving money in one of the cities I worked in was the Eli Lilly Foundation. And Eli Lilly had a huge foundation, but they put their money there to be able to fund other causes that they were interested in seeing do well. They funded businesses, they funded nonprofit organizations, they funded all kinds of different things, but they usually funded through the foundation, not through the corporation. So if you are a nonprofit and you're looking for funding, sometimes creating a foundation that mirrors your organization will open the door to you getting some of the corporate funds that are out there that otherwise would be closed to you. But the question is, how are you going to fund this project or the plan that you're putting together here? Because a plan without finance is a dream. A plan without finance stays in the dream phase because you can't get it off the ground. And dreams don't rise unless they're funded. Okay? So, the other question, and we started this process in the beginning, now that you've built your team, but the second part of it is, who else do you need to collaborate with? Because everybody on your team may not have all of the talent, resources, or skills that you need to pull off this vision, this dream that you have. But in the same respect, you may need to add someone to your team. Well, so who are you going to collaborate with that's going to help you through this process? You know, I'll use myself as a for instance in this respect. I have a lot of different people that I collaborate with, a lot of different people that are in the same space that I'm in. Some of you are watching this video now. The issue is I can only go so far by myself. I need other people who have a similar goal, dream, or objective to collaborate with me in the similar space, not always to compete, because everybody in the same space is not competition. There are people in that space that are in a similar line of work, a similar track, that have the ability to help pull you up, and you can help pull them up. But you have to be willing to open yourself up to the idea of collaboration. Open yourself up to the idea of cooperation. And the other part of it, the most important part of collaboration and cooperation, is another word that starts with C, called communication. Be willing to communicate. I'm not telling you to divulge all of your secrets, but communicate with someone. Talk to someone. Ask the question. Let them ask you questions about what it is that you're trying to do. How are you trying to accomplish that? They may have been at it a little bit longer than you and have the ability to give you some insight into things that you didn't think about. But it's all about collaboration. It's all about cooperation, and it's all about communication. You got to be willing to give. You know, I've heard it said many, many times, the first person to give wins. And normally when you say that to people, the first thing they think about is, money? You want me to give money? It's not always about giving the money. Sometimes it's about giving encouragement. Sometimes it's about giving an idea. Sometimes it's about just giving time or focus to someone else who has an issue or a problem that you can help them solve. That's an idea for a business. Maybe that's what you should be doing. Maybe that person is a potential customer. Maybe that person is a potential partner in business that you now have opened the door to talk to because you're willing to cooperate, collaborate, and communicate. Make sense to you? Makes a lot of sense to me. And as you're structuring your strategic plan, there are people out there that need to be included in helping you develop your vision. Sometimes they're helping you develop your vision and they don't even know they are. It's just about having a conversation. But some people need to be drawn closer into your circle. Okay? What about the market? How is the market doing? Is the market doing well, where I'm going in and I'm actually creating a place for myself? Or is the market in a state of flux and I'm looking to go in to help turn something around? You know, 2008, 2007 and 2008 showed us that strategic plans, or writing strategic plans, and I talked about this in the beginning, sometimes they're not always written in a upswing economy or in a good situation. Sometimes you're writing them in a turnaround management type of situation. Even though the market's good, sometimes you've got to go in and do some turnaround management. But what do I mean by that? I'll tell you another little story. I went into Indianapolis many years ago. It's been a lot of years. It wasn't the city that it is now. There were only 2 major hotels in this city, and the dome where the Colts play was called the Hoosier Dome at the time. It's not called the Hoosier Dome anymore. But anyway, to make a long story short, I was in a hotel where, when the hotel was built, it was the premier hotel in the city. When I arrived, they had built a brand new hotel across the street that was a little bit larger, had larger facilities, had a larger ballroom, kind of like the one you see me sitting here in front of. And it had a junior ballroom that dwarfed our junior ballroom. And what had happened was that the hotel I was working in was in need of renovation. They were brand new, and the staff was demoralized. Why? Because they'd always been the premier facility in the city. The market had shifted. The things that they had been used to getting and relying on and taking for granted were now a struggle. We had a new shiny competitor across the street who now was dominating the market. What do? You've got to shift your paradigm. You've got to shift your ideology. You've got to shift your focus to accentuate the things that you're good at and the strengths that you have. You've almost got to do a reevaluation of your position in the market, because the market shifted, and if you don't shift with it, you're going to go out of business. You know, there was a book written back in the 80s on paradigm shift and how markets shift and markets change, and if you don't ride or figure out how to develop and change with the flow, then you're going to go out of business. Look at what happened to IBM. Remember, well, you might not remember the big mainframe computers, then all of a sudden desktops were developed. Look at what Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak did to the computer market when they introduced the Mac and Apple was born. You know, now it's not just a computer. Apple has become a way of life for people because people changed. You now see that Droid phones have been introduced into the marketplace. Why? To try to get some of that market share back. So how do you make the adjustment? How do you make the changes? And what adjustments and changes do you have to make to pull things back so your business comes back into focus before you lose out or go out? So when we were in Indianapolis, one of the things that we discovered was that this big shiny building across the street from us had a larger ballroom than we did, had a larger junior ballroom than we did, had more guest rooms than we did, had a little bit better location with a sky bridge to the convention center than we did. And so when I arrived, the staff was kind of demoralized. The staff was kind of negative. They thought that they had lost. They would always be playing second fiddle in a blues quartet. They would never be the #1 premier hotel that they had once been. Well, the ideology was this. We had an owner who had just decided to put $22 million into the hotel to renovate it. Key number one, changes our strategy because it changes our position in the marketplace. Before he put his $22 million in, he wanted to know what we were going to do on the other side. Now, I don't know about you. I don't have $22 million to invest, but if I did, I want to make sure that there's an ROI at the end of my $22 million. So he wanted us to change our strategy and change our ideology, change our tactics. Prior to him committing this $22 million, he was coming to us saying, what are you going to do for me if I do this? Because if I'm not going to realize the return on the investment that I want, maybe I should look at selling this building versus reinvesting my capital again into this facility. So to make a long story short, here's kind of what we had to do. We had to go back and we had to do what we'll talk about in the plan, a SWOT analysis. What were our strengths? What were our weaknesses? What were our opportunities? And what were our threats against this building next to us? Now, again, we're still in the vision stage of this strategic plan. You're going to hear about a SWOT analysis later on again, but we had to, before we could get the owner to invest the capital, we had to understand what we were up against as it related to just one competitor who was now dominating the marketplace. Sometimes you're not going to be able to overtake them, but you got to find out how you can compete. So here's what happened. We sat down and we took that other facility apart. Remember I said they had more guest rooms than us. They had a larger ballroom. They had a larger junior ballroom than we did. So these were three things. They had a little bit better location as it related to the convention center. because of their sky bridge connected right in. Ours went into the parking garage, made a right, and then into the convention center. So people had to sometimes be exposed to a little bit of the elements when they were making the walk. Okay, we'll come back to that. So what did we have that they didn't? Well, the one thing that we had that they didn't, we had more suites than they did. And our suites were larger than theirs. We had a nicer presidential suite. We had a nicer suite, which was called the governor's suite. And our third suite was even larger than their presidential suite. Remember I said we were right across the street from the convention center. Many of the conventions that were coming to town took multiple hotels. We call them citywides in the industry. So because they were citywide conventions, most of their meetings were at the convention center. So a lot of times their ballroom space really wasn't a big issue for them because most of their functions were at the convention center. Now there may have been some food and beverage functions like dinners that we were not able to handle sometimes, that they didn't want to put in the convention center that other hotel was able to house or handle. But here's what was sweet for us. Because we had more suites and nicer suites, most of these conventions that came to town had exhibitors. So the exhibitors have hospitalities. The hospitalities are usually held in suites. So when we go to the exhibitors and we start to tell them about our suites and our hospitality, we can replace the food and beverage that we couldn't put in the ballrooms in the suites. Issue number one. We had 490 rooms. They had 600 and some rooms. In a 600-room hotel, you'll commit about 500. In a 490-room hotel, you'll commit maybe 400 rooms. So we're not that far off from the room standpoint. But here's the other thing. We had 3 restaurants. They had 1 restaurant. So again, when your people break, they want to get something to eat. They're going to come to a hotel that has 3 restaurants and eat faster than a hotel that has 1 restaurant. So we made sure that we put that information in their material so that they understood that we had 3 of our own restaurants, plus we had an atrium lobby that had other restaurants in it. We had a McDonald's, we had other options for them to choose in the event that they broke after their meetings or during lunch and they wanted a quick lunch or they wanted somewhere where they could kind of get together and congregate. Okay? So we were able to turn the corner on those things. Here's the thing. Because of the nicety of our suites, we were able to sometimes talk to the executive director and the meeting planner and the president and get them to choose or select us as their headquarters hotel because the executive director needs one of the top suites in the hotel. The president needs one of the top suites in the hotel. And the incoming president for the following year wants one of the top suites in the hotel. When you've got 3 major suites that you can commit to them now, you've all of a sudden had an opportunity, and I'll just say this, and some people get it, some people, to play to their ego a little bit. So we had a little bit of a leg up in that perspective, that we could do something that they couldn't do over there. And the other thing, the last thing that really helped us a lot, is that in this $22 million commitment, the owner was going to redo our health club, which made us a full-scale health facility with a pool, and they didn't have that across the street. So as we were structuring this new strategy and this new strategic plan, we came out of this SWOT analysis, we were able to accentuate our advantages and downplay our disadvantages in every conversation with a customer, potential client, or anyone who is looking to invest in our facility. So what I'm going to stop with today, because I've gone through this process with you to get you started and get you loaded, but I really wanted you to understand a couple of things. Number one, why are you doing this? What is it that you're doing in your business? Why are you developing this business? Why are you developing this plan? What is it that's driving this? What is your vision? How are you going to make your vision become a reality? What's your why? Discover your why first. And then once you discover your why, discover the things, the people, the assets, the resources that you need to start down the road to success. Success, as you've heard it said before, leaves clues. Something that Tony Robbins is famous for saying. Success leaves clues. And the clues are often found in discovering your why and how you're going to do it. Okay? I'm Velton Schau. Thanks for your time today. Again, we're going to continue down this road in this process. Tomorrow I will give you another segment on the structure of putting together a dynamic strategic plan. Until then, thanks for your time. As always, transform your thinking. It'll truly transform your world. Velton Schau out.